of destruction in the wake of Hurricane Milton.
We've got 3.2 million that are without power.
It's at least 2 feet deeper than it was yesterday.
Now, the cleanup and rebuilding begins. Plus,
so many rumors about the next storm, about the next hurricane. Is it true? We're going to verify.
keeping you safe and informed. This is First Coast News on your side.
Milton is now out of our area, but the storm's impacts are being felt across Florida. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Heather Crawford.
And I'm Anthony Austin. This drone video that we're about to show you here shows roof damage to Flagler City Hall. It appears the corner of the roof just peeled off during the storm.
We have team coverage of Milton's impact tonight. We're going to be checking in with our team of reporters on your side across the First Coast throughout the next 90 minutes. But first, Chief Meteorologist Tim Deegan joins us now. Tim, Milton now officially out of Florida, but your concern tonight is the high tide?
Yeah, exactly. And that's all part of that storm surge. If you remember, there was a storm surge forecast that we had 3 to 5 feet along the ocean, 2 to 4 feet along the St. Johns River and estuaries up and down northeast Florida and southeastern Georgia. First of all, just to verify what you've heard, folks, there is Milton. That's about 300 miles off the coast. It is moving to the east at 21 miles per hour. That's racing for a storm. In fact, technically, it's no longer considered a tropical storm. It's considered post-tropical. We'll talk about that as we go through the evening. Powerful, large storm, sustained winds 70 miles per hour. Remember, we talk very often, the one number to watch, 983. That's actually the pressure of a strong Category 1 hurricane. But bottom line, it's hundreds of miles offshore, and it's continuing to head away from the First Coast. It's going to race across, well, about 1,000 miles of the Atlantic before it joins up with the front. So let's talk about the coastal scenario, because Heather started us off with the tides, and it's all connected to the ocean. The estuaries in the St. Johns, yes, some of that rise because of the rain, but the majority of it because of the storm surge, because of the winds we had. First of all, let's talk about the winds for the rest of the day, primarily out around the beaches over some of the wider sections of the St. Johns, 25 gusts to 40. Over land, you might not be feeling this, but remember, we talked about this for days even before the event, that because of the warmer waters, there's not an inversion there, so more of those winds aloft can get down to the surface. But at least those winds are dropping. These are the two high tides that were most critical. We were watching this afternoon, 2 o'clock at the beaches, 4 o'clock downtown. We're going to show you all the tides along the river. We've already passed the beaches. When I say the beaches, I should say the islands. That includes places like St. Augustine, Fernandina, all of those areas where there were evacuations or roads were closed. That was mid-afternoon. The tide is now dropping, so conditions improving. Along the St. Johns in Duval and northern Clay and St. Johns County, we're talking about the St. Johns River, we're just now passing high tide. Best we can tell, though, is about a 3-foot storm surge. Remember, 4 feet above that is when it starts getting into homes and businesses. So it does look like we thought this was going to be the case, but it's nice to eyeball it. We still have had some water come up through the drains. There is some flooding, but it looks for the most part not going to get into homes and businesses.
That is good news, Tim. Thank you. Late last night, Nassau County issued a non-mandatory evacuation order for people living near the coast. Our Zach Wilcox joins us live tonight from Fernandina Beach with a look at a road closed there. And Zach, I know you spoke with a woman who was in that evacuation zone. What did she tell you?
Yeah, Heather, well, we'll start off with this. This road was closed around 2:45 when it was high tide. We were out here, and you could see actually the line of where the water got up to, reached all the way over to the railroad tracks. This is Front Street right by the marina in downtown Fernandina Beach, and that water is now receded down. There's still a parking lot that's got some pooling in it and some seagulls actually using it as a bird bath. But you mentioned we did check in with somebody who lived along the Amelia River in Piney Island. That's one of the areas that they were told to as a recommendation to evacuate. She mentioned she took some precautions that they weren't initially intending to take, but when they saw that announcement, they decided to go ahead and try and be proactive and then just wait and see what the water was going to do.
We moved our RV over to a parking lot on higher ground, and then we got things ready if we had to move through the night. And we parked cars in the garage and by the garage so we could get out if we needed to. And then we were waiting to watch the water.
So of course we had to check in with them this afternoon because it was that high tide about 2 hours ago that county officials were worried about. Fortunately, those folks over in Piney Island, it only came up a little bit to the end of their dock, so it didn't get anywhere near their house. It had been in their house, a few years ago, back in 2017 or so. So they were relieved to see that really not even their full yard was inundated with water. In Fernandina Beach, Zach Wilcox, First Coast News, on your side.
Zach, thank you. Let's go to Milton's impacts in Duval County. Let's head out to the beach because right now you're taking a live look at the sign for the Bearded Pig in Jacksonville Beach. And that sign looks like it's about to fall over. Strong winds from Milton caused damage to the sign. It appears police tape was tied to the sign in a nearby tree to try to keep it up. But our crews there tell us it seems to be causing that tree, as you can see in this live look, to lean as well.
That's not a very big tree holding that up right there. Well, checking in on Ortega in Jacksonville, our crews were out there Wednesday night. They checked back in with neighbors along Pirates Cove Street, and this is what it looked like. The street flooded with water going into yards, even into some garages. Here's a look at someone's backyard on that same street. You can see, we just showed you a minute ago, their dock and their patio now halfway underwater. Neighbors tell our crews there this tends to be the norm when it storms.
It's pretty typical for this road. It's kind of notoriously famous for flooding all the time. So we're sort of used to it by now, but with the tidal situation, it's always you have to kind of watch all that. Where our parents live.
Now, to keep drivers safe on that road, one family put up white posts so that drivers don't drive into a ditch that can't be seen underneath all that water. Coming up tonight at 5:30, Christina Burgess is on your side, giving you a closer look at this flooded street and what neighbors are saying about it.
Just a few minutes ago, St. Johns County lifted its mandatory evacuation order for people in zones A, B, and F. The order lifted at 5 p.m. And looking ahead to Friday, the county says it will close its shelters at 10 tomorrow morning. Let's take a live look now at the Bridge of Lions in downtown St. Augustine. The Bridge of Lions is closed as the St. Augustine Police Department reports flooding on the island side of the bridge. Even though Milton exited Florida's east coast early this morning, we saw water lapping up from the Matanzas River into the afternoon. We want to check in now with our Renata DiGregorio, who is joining us live in St. Augustine. And Renata, what are you seeing out there right now?
Anthony, we are right downtown in downtown St. Augustine, right by the Bridge of Lions. We want to give you a look here at A1A because this is an area that pretty often we will see flooding. Right now, you can see it's not quite reaching the doors of most of the businesses. Many of them have sandbags up over it. And on each side of the road, it's not quite reaching all the way across the road either. So good news there. Over across the way, though, some of the water is splashing over the wall. And then we do have the police that are blocking off the Bridge of Lions right now. Across in South Davis Shores, we were over there as well. And a lot of people are saying they're feeling pretty lucky because water didn't come in their homes, but police are urging people not to come downtown. We spoke with a spokesperson with the St. Augustine Police Department, and they say they really just don't want cars to be driving, pushing water into people's houses and businesses. But as we said, across the bridge, on the Bridge of Lions and South Davis Shores over by Menendez and near Coquina Avenue, it's a lot more like they're rivers right now rather than roads. That's where we spoke with Brad Waldrop.
I feel like we dodged a bullet. This morning was a few limbs down here and there, but nothing really too bad. But the water just right now is kind of crazy.
So again, the Bridge of Lions right here still closed, but there are people who have been walking over it who we've seen. Quite a few people walking around downtown and checking things out tonight. Renata DiGregorio live in downtown St. Augustine. First Coast News on your side.
Renata, thank you. You heard him say it feels like we dodged a bullet. Most of the First Coast fared pretty well from Hurricane Milton, but other parts of Florida just devastated. In fact, NBC News is reporting the storm caused at least 12 deaths.
And there's brand new video out of Tampa this evening showing police officers evacuating people from their home after a tree crashed through the roof. They were safely taken to a local evacuation shelter. And a lot of people talking about Tropicana Field. This is what it looks like in the aftermath after Milton left its mark here. This is in St. Pete where the Tampa Bay Rays play. New video from inside the stadium shows just the extent
of the damage. That roof pretty much gone. Now, normally it's a covered ballpark, but in a statement, the team says they are grateful no one was hurt last night, and they're now working with law enforcement to make sure that building is secured.
And video from Fort Myers shows exactly why we always say to stay out of floodwaters. You never know what's under the water, so look here in that video. I think we're going to play it again. This car going through the floodwaters when an alligator just kind of pops up there, right there, out of the water and bites the car's tire.
That is a sight you probably don't expect to see every day. Nope. Going south now to Iona, Florida. This is near Cape Coral. You can see all that brown. See all of this right here? This is floodwater, and that armored vehicle, it has police officers inside. You can see them as they continue on. We saw them stopping, checking on residents inside just to make sure everyone's okay after Milton moved through. And streets throughout Daytona Beach remain flooded tonight. Rescue crews in knee-deep water rescuing children. These pictures posted by the Daytona Beach Police Department, parts of Volusia County are under a curfew tonight due to dangerous flooded roads.
And Heather, schools are reopening tomorrow and into next week following hurricane closures. This is for public schools. Clay and Nassau County schools will open tomorrow. Duval and St. Johns County schools had an already planned day off for students Monday, so they won't be back in the classroom until Tuesday. Putnam County schools already had planned days off for Monday and Tuesday, so those students will be back in class Wednesday.
One of our closest areas to be impacted by Milton, Putnam County. After the break, we have a live report from Palatka on how it's faring after the storm.
The farther to the south, the heavier and higher the rainfall totals. We'll talk about what that implies for the St. Johns River for weeks to come in just a few moments.
Right now at 5, our team coverage continues in Palatka. That's where we find Jordan Wilkerson. She's been in Putnam County since before the storm in Jordan. You saw a lot of wind and rain over the last 24 hours. What does it look like at this hour?
Yeah, if you tuned in yesterday, you saw 2 of my umbrellas broke due to the winds, but it is a lot calmer now. However, you see this road here behind me? This is San Jose Avenue in East Palatka. This is about the worst flooding, street flooding we have seen driving around. You can also see to the left there some debris. Definitely been seeing a lot of debris around. Cleanup is definitely happening, but the good news is no major damage. At least we haven't heard or seen of any. I do hear a generator over here, and it is a little too early for the street lights to come on, so haven't been able to find out if they've lost power, but if I find someone, I will ask for sure. But if you remember where I was on the dock at Riverfront Park yesterday, those docks are still covered with water. So the water hasn't really receded, or maybe it did and then it's picked back up, you know, with the high tide. But the good news, it seems like the residents here really did a great job at protecting their homes and their businesses, but there were shelters. There were actually 5 shelters available in Putnam County for those who really needed them if the power went out or if the flooding was too bad. And they actually get this housed 593 people, with 140 alone at Browning Pierce Elementary School. These are numbers they have not seen since Hurricane Irma.
I think sometimes in Florida we numb to storms, but everybody saw what Helene did in other places, maybe not here. So Helene, I think had like 7 at some of our shelters that got up past 100 this time. So we were, 7 to 10, and we consolidated very fast after Helene. So I think people took it very seriously, and there's still some flooding out there in our county.
And we've just had to step out of the way a little bit to let a car go by. How you doing, sir? Do you have power right now?
I stay right here.
You live right here? You have power?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful, because I saw that generator over there. I heard it, and I wanted to make sure.
No, they don't have power back there. Everybody over here, everybody in this area got power.
Okay.
He just got a generator still going.
Okay.
Everybody in the back there don't have power.
Well, how are y'all doing?
We doing okay.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much, and stay safe out there, and hopefully your cleanup's not too much. Yes, ma'am. All right, well, what I think is really, really cool too, guys, is that Anheuser-Busch has actually partnered with the American Red Cross When they handed me this, I wasn't quite sure what it was, but it is definitely water, and this is what they're handing out at those shelters. Now, they have consolidated the shelters, so if you do still need, like if your house doesn't have electricity or you can't get to your home because of flooded roads, you can actually call the Putnam County EOC to see which shelters are still available, but they are going to be there as long as needed. Red Cross is also taking a little break there because they know they're going to be deployed somewhere else. So reporting from East Palatka, I'm Jordan Wilkerson, First Coast News, on your side.
Now, the First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Thank you, Jordan. Great information. Really good to hear that even down there in East Palatka, they're getting some of the power back. Well, I wanted to show you the beaches. That is still where the winds are gustiest, still gusting to over 40 miles per hour. But for those of you wondering, I did some research this morning, and the beaches held. Beach renourishment, what perfect timing because the berm. So when they did the renourishment, they raised the level of the beach, but then also built a berm, which is like adding sand to the dune. And I can tell you that at high tide, the ocean didn't quite make it to the berm. And I'm not a turtle expert, but I do think that means that for the few nests that haven't hatched yet, they're probably in pretty good shape. Okay, let's take a look at the temperatures, because for those of you nowhere near the beach, you felt those cool temperatures this morning. Was that nice? And you know, we said all along, we thought it would be the case that for those of you that were hit hardest by Debbie and by Helene, talking about from Lake City to Waycross, that for you it would primarily be a cool breeze, and I think it was. And although you're the warmest now, your relative humidity levels aren't too bad. So I would suspect 79 to 80 degrees in Lake City and Waycross feels pretty nice. For the rest of us, we're socked in with the clouds, but the dew points are lower, and there's some significance there. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about the rainfall. Of course, what's left of Milton now with all of that rain is heading offshore, and really by tropical standards racing. For a tropical storm, post-tropical, to be heading along at 20 miles an hour, that's quick. But watch what happened with Milton. So here's Milton over the last 36 hours, heading to the north-northeast, makes that right turn right on I-4, which is why the areas just north of it received the heavier rainfall totals, about 6 to 12 inches. Now, because it moved along quicker than expected, it didn't make it to 18 inches, but still 6 to 12 inches over a large portion of the watershed of the St. Johns. Remember, the St. Johns goes from south to north. In fact, the headwaters of the St. Johns down here, in between the coast and Lake Okeechobee. So look at where all the heavy rains fell. So all of that still has to flow up the St. Johns. Now, there's not going to be a massive flash flood. It's going to take its time, but it's probably going to be, because of all the other events we've had since August, the St. Johns is going to be full to actually slightly out of its banks for more than likely about the next month. We need some dry weather. And you know what? For the most part, over the next 7 days, we're not going to have any new rainfall events. Now, with high pressure to our north and northeast breezes, there might be a few isolated showers on Saturday. But for the most part, your real heavy rains are associated with the front that separates the polar jet stream from the subtropical jet stream. And that's going to stay well to the south of us for the next 7 days. And that's why, for the most part, we're going to be dry. And it is that cooler high pressure system and really that front that saved us. I mean, that is the synoptic reason why, if you are with friends and different people are debating why, you can just say, hey, it was the front. And the front was along I-4, and that's where the hurricane went. So we can say, autumn saved us. Anyhow, this evening, well, I think you'll start to see more breaks in the clouds and 68 degrees. Brightness returned for more of us on Friday. Yeah, there'll still be winds out there, but not nearly as gusty as today. How about lows of 60, which implies many of you will actually see 50s? And if that's not cool enough, how about 59 officially, which means some of you may see middle 50s. If you have to do some cleaning up, that's a lot easier than those middle 90s we had, if you remember that, after Helene. Why not call it just Super Sunday? Beautiful day, I think. And why don't we go farther off into the future? Yeah, we warm up through Tuesday. Monday, that is, but that's not going to be a humid day. And then look what happens on Wednesday and Thursday. Is it true? Could we possibly have lower 50s? We think so.
Ooh, that sounds nice. Well, you may have seen some viral posts claiming that another hurricane is coming toward Florida right behind Milton. After the break, we're going to verify. Viral images show another hurricane on Milton's tail in the Gulf of Mexico. You may have seen it on your feeds today.
But the track and the cone being shared online, is that true? Is it real? Is it misleading? Our Jeannie Blaylock is joining us tonight to verify.
Well, you No, the last thing people want to hear right now is that another hurricane is coming and we're going to get slammed, right? We've seen images like this one spread all over social media today showing parts of Florida in a cone. The person who posted this wrote, Hurricane Nadine is coming next week, October 18th. Looks like same path of Helene. You can see what we did. Big red X. We don't want anybody to believe this at all. We want to tell you right off the bat, this track is not real. Our sources tonight are the National Hurricane Center and our chief meteorologist, Tim Deegan. The National Hurricane Center puts out advisories for any tropical systems they are keeping an eye on. So here is the real thing. This is actually the official map from today on their website. And you can see there are 3 spots. Here's Milton right over here, leaving Florida. Here's Leslie out in the middle somewhere. And then there's an unnamed thing over by Africa. And you notice here in the Gulf, there is no such thing as Nadine or any system at all. So let's check in right now with First Coast News Chief Meteorologist Tim Deegan. And Tim, I think whoever posted this was just downright mean. Nobody needs to get upset.
Well, they certainly know how to tweak people's nerves because friends, family members this morning early started off with many texts to me saying, Tim, sorry, but is this true? So it certainly seemed to hit a lot of folks to make them wonder. Now, we can't prove this, but we went back to the archives of just the last couple of weeks, and this cone looks very similar. This is of Helene, notice, September 23rd, and this is what the Hurricane Center put out for Helene. Now, Jeannie mentioned this, and I want to double up on this. If you wonder if it really is something that is, getting you upset, let's take a look, and I want to show you and remind you that, as Jeannie mentioned, there's Leslie, there's Milton, there's nothing down there the Hurricane Center is watching. But I also want to talk about, and Jeannie put it well, just this thing off of Africa. Remember, they'll do that. This only has a 20% chance of developing over 7 days, and yet they'll talk about that. So they're going to do that, number one. Number two, they are not going to. It's part of their threshold rules. They will not put out a cone a week before they think something will form, maybe 2 days. That's it. Now, with all that said, that doesn't mean that late next week, we might be watching something develop here, but at the present time, there's no reason to think that on Tuesday, there'll be a named storm in the Caribbean. Another reason to try to trust the folks you get your forecast from.
All right, Tim Deegan, thank you, and our Verify team is on your side. We are always answering your questions using experts. If you want something verified, just email us, verify@firstcoastnews.com.